Hello and welcome to So Crafty with Connie. Today I'd like to show you how to make these adorable gnomes. You can make them for Christmas or you can make them for all year round. You can add certain elements for them to be a certain season or a holiday. They're really fun and easy to make. I'm going to show you how to make them two different ways. One with socks and one with fabric, just in case you can't find what you want in a sock. You can use fabric to create the same thing. So the supplies that are needed, you need one sock for the base, which is what the rice is going to go in, one sock for the outside. You need a sock for the hat, some rice, sewing machine, and fabric's optional. Little decor to put on, or unless you just want it plain, some scissors, a glue gun, and glue sticks, and blush and brush are also optional. It depends on if you want to paint the nose pink or like a fleshy color, or if you just want to leave it white like the sock. You also need some fur fabric to make the beard. You could find that at Joann's or Hobby Lobby, anywhere that sells fabric. Um, you can get it in different colors too if you want. And that does it for the supplies. Let's start with the fabric hat one first. Okay, so I am taking my white sock for the base and I'm cutting just above the heel, and I'm going to save the top for something else. You can use it for a hat or another base gnome. But I cut it a little bit above the heel, and it depends on how big you want your gnome and how big your sock is as well. And so what I did was I took my first cupful of rice and I just put the sock over the top of it, and then I turned it upside down, and now it filled the sock up pretty easily. And then once I did that, I was able to get more rice into it easily as well by just opening up and pouring the rice in there. Now for this size cup, for the size of gnome I wanted, I noticed that 2.5 cups of these size that I had worked. So for the size that I wanted. And then that's something that you can kind of figure out. Depends on how big your cup is, how big you want your gnome, and then you'll know how much rice to put in there. But as I filled it up, I was just shaking it and shaking it all the way down to the bottom. And as you do that, it'll expand. The sock will expand. So if it looks like you're getting too much rice and it doesn't look like you're not going to be able to get any more rice in there, just kind of hold the top and just kind of shake it, and it will expand around the bottom so you can add more rice. And so I ran out of rice, so I had to get me some more. And then rice works as a good weight. I got this at Walmart. It's 20 pounds for about $8-9, I think. You can use pellets too if you want. Those get pretty pricey, but I found the rice to be a good weight. And it's easy to use, and it's pretty cheap. So I'm just still kind of pushing more down to add more rice because I wanted it a little bit bigger than what it is now. And you just keep adding until you get to the size that you want. And again, if it looks like you can't fit any more rice in there, just take the top, shake it down, and it will expand. And you can also hold the top and push it too, and it'll push it down and it will expand as well. And that way you can add more rice to it to get the size that you want. So I'll add a little bit more because I still want a little bit bigger. And then it depends on not only how tall, but how wide around you want it as well. And then I'm still kind of working the rice down. Alright, so I was happy with that size, and now I'm going to grab a rubber band and I'm going to just close up the top with the rubber band. You kind of want it a little bit tight. You don't want it to come apart. Any kind of rubber band will work. And so I'm just closing the top up with the rubber band fairly tightly. Okay, and now I'm going to kind of shape it the way I want my gnome shape. If you notice, it's kind of an oblong shape. And then I'm going to the bottom will be flat because it's going to set up. But so now it's kind of at an oblong shape, and now I'm going to start making my nose. And then all you do is just go about a couple of inches or so down from the rubber band at the top, because you want it a little bit higher. You want it more towards the top than towards the bottom. And I'm just taking my hand and I'm just picking up some rice with my fist, and I'm kind of stretching the sock out too as I do that, so I can grab a big chunk. And you can make it small, big, however you want. And then I'm just going to put the rubber band around it at the bottom to make it stick up. And then that's my gnome with his nose, and that's the base. Now at this point, I would recommend putting the blush on, because I think I did it towards the end in the middle of the video, but I would go ahead and do your blush now so you don't get anything on your fabric or your socks that you put on later. Anyway, so now I'm using the fabric to measure the size of the hat. So I just took my fabric. I couldn't find any black and red flannel, so I took this and I just wrapped a little part of it around the top of the head and measured how big to make it. And then I decided how tall I wanted it. That's entirely up to you. And I just cut me a square piece out, and now I'm going to sew the side seam, and I sewed it, and it's about 1/2 of an inch or so. And so now I am going to squeeze the top. You can either put a rubber band around that, or I just took some ribbon, because this is going to be the top of my hat. And I wanted to save my rubber bands, but now I'm just tying some ribbon around it to make the top of the hat, because you want that cone looking style hat. And so now I'm going to take it, and I don't want a rough seam or a rough edge, so I'm going to turn it right side out, and then I'm going to fold the edges in so I don't have a rough edge. Okay, just like that. And now I'm going to fit it on and just see if it fits. If it's a little snug, that's okay, because you can just squish his head in, because it's rice, and it's pretty flexible, and it'll do however you want it. So I like that fit. So now I'm going to go ahead and take the blush and the brush, and I'm going to just kind of paint his nose. And you want to do this step first, before you put any kind of beard or fabric on him. So I've got his painted nose. You can kind of see that. And so now I'm going to put him in the sock. Now that's a sock. It's an ankle sock. And so I'm just going to put the ankle sock over the bottom, and I'm going to pull it up over the top as much as it'll go. I'm just kind of straightening it up, pulling it up as far as it'll go, and then tucking it up under the nose, and then around the sides somewhat as well. And then I'm going to glue that in place on the ends. Now, but before, I'm just going to make sure that it kind of matches with my flannel, and then I'm going to make sure that I can get it covered. It all gets covered and that kind of thing. So just making sure that works. And so now I'm going to glue each side of the top of my sock, just to kind of give it a little bit security so it doesn't come down. And I'm tucking it up under the nose a little more. Alright. Now I got the bottom put on. Now we want to put the beard on before we put the hat on. So I got me a little piece of cardboard here, and I'm kind of measuring the size of the beard that I want. So I'm just taking the cardboard and measuring it up to my size of the gnome. And I put it up under his nose, and then of course the beard is going to go up a little bit above his nose once you cut the little hole out. So for this size gnome, I'm going to cut my beard out a 4.5 by 4, and so I've made me a pattern just so I'll know what it is. And then you'll have different size gnomes, and you can make different size beards if you want. Some people want them long, some people want them short. I wanted mine some people want some like kind of a point at the end. I wanted mine a square. So I got my fur fabric and I'm cutting out the pattern for my fur. And the fur can kind of, when you're cutting it out, it'll kind of, maybe have some little parts that are hanging down, so you can just cut those off. But I'm also rounding my corners. And so now I'm just going to kind of measure it and see. It'll go up above the nose just a tad. So I'm going to cut out a little half circle out from the middle to fit around the nose. And I didn't really measure, I just kind of guesstimate, because if it's too big, you can push it in a little and kind of like that, and it'll still work well. It'll still look really good. So now you just kind of tuck it up around the nose, and next you're going to hot glue that in place. So I got my glue gun and I'm going to glue all the way around the nose, and that's where I'm going to put the beard, because you want it as close up there as you can so none of the black can be seen. And I just kind of pushed it around, and now I'm just taking my fingers and just kind of pushing it in. Again, be careful with the glue because it is going to be very hot. So now I'm just kind of tucking it in, and it's kind of got that nice little round effect. But again, the top edges there above its nose is going to be hidden from the hat. So now I got the beard done. So now we're going to put the hat on. Okay, so I've got my hat that I made earlier, and I'm going to make sure that the seam goes on the back. So I'm just putting the hat, just fitting it over the best way that I can, and I'm just kind of, you want to pull the hat down kind of a little bit so it like hides the top of the beard and kind of around the edge, and you just kind of tuck it in there. And I'm just kind of working my way down with my hat, and it's a nice fit. And so now I'm going to glue that in place too once I get it to where I like it. Now some people put stuffing in their hat. You could do that. There's different things that you can do, but mine just kind of stood up the way it was, so I didn't really felt like I needed anything in there. And so now I'm happy with the way where it is. So now I'm just gonna kind of glue it in place, and I want to glue all the way around. And this part can be a little messy because you can get some glue on your beard and that kind of thing. So just kind of be careful with that. But if you do, you can easily cut that part off, and it's not gonna be seen pretty much because you've got so much of the fur there that it's going to be hard to tell. So now I'm going to glue the back because I want it to stay on really well. And then if you do get any kind of strand of glue on your straying on your gnome towards the bottom or anything like that, wait until it dries. If you find it a little difficult to take off, wait till it dries, and it'll be able to, you'll find it's a lot easier to get off. But you can also cut it off too once it dries. if it's something kind of fuzzy. And again, it won't be noticeable because the other fuzz will be over it. But okay, now I've got my hat on, and I've got it all glued on, and I've got my beard done. Now I want to add a little bit of Christmas decor to the hat just to make it look a little bit more festive. You can leave it the way it is, or you can add a little bit more decoration. So I've decided what I want to put on my gnome. I've got few different things out. So I got a cotton ball, and I made a bow out of raffia, and I have some of those Christmas tree. I'll have some holly berries, and then I have some leaves that were from the berries. And so I kind of have an idea of how I want to do this. So basically what I'm doing is just kind of putting these on kind of where I want. And I do have some of those little Christmas tree looking branches. And now before you start gluing, you want to make sure that you kind of put it on there first just to see how you want it. Because once you glue it on there, it's going to be a little difficult to get off. But so I've added my berries and my little Christmas tree branch and a leaf, and now I'm adding this cotton ball, and I've noticed that it's better if I just cut the stem all the way off. And this kind of stuff I got at the Dollar Tree. You can find some really cute accents decor there. One I think was like a candle ring, and that you put around the candle, and it had the berries and it had the pine cone and that kind of thing. And so so now I've added that stuff on there the way I wanted it. Now I got my raffia, and I made just like a little single loop, and I tied it around at the center, and with the raffia. And so now I'm going to kind of put it on the edge right there. It just had a big glue gob there, and so I wanted to do something to hide that, and I wanted to kind of add something a little extra to it. So here it is, all finished. Here's my gnome, and I wanted to cut the raffia just a little bit to make it kind of line up with his hat. And so that's it. That is how you make a gnome without a sock for the hat and using fabric. And if you don't want to sew the seam, you could probably just hot glue it. But anyway, there he is, all finished with using flannel fabric for the hat. And now I'll show you how to make one using tights and socks. So if you're not able to find the kind of socks that you want, you can also use tights. I found these tights at Walmart, same as the socks. No, wait, I found the socks at the Dollar Tree. And so the socks I'm going to use for the base. And I had several orders, so I have all my gnomes lined up, but I wanted to show you real quick how to do one using socks, while using tights as the hat. And so I'm putting my base on now with the sock, and again I cut just above the heel, and I'm just pulling it up. Notice that some of my gnomes are bigger than the others, and that's okay. Just depends on what kind of size sock you have. And so once I get that all the way pushed up, and then I'll glue it in place. And then the tights that you see there that are red and black plaid right there, I'm taking the foot part, and I'm going to measure how long I want the hat to be. And so I'm just going to cut straight across. And there's different things you can do. You can use the rest of these, and I'm doing the same thing. I've just cut in the middle, so I have two hats that I can use right there. And so now I'm turning it wrong side out, and I'm going to take a rubber band instead of a ribbon, and I'm going to squeeze the top, and I'm going to make the top of the cap this way. And this works because some socks you have that you want to use a cute design for the hat, but it's upside down. Because when you put it on your foot, it's the right side up. But this way, if there's a cute design you want to use, you can do it like this. And it'll be right side up. And so I've taken a rubber band and just squeezing the top and closing it up, and then I'm going to turn it right side out. And now I've got the top of my hat, and it's gonna stretch nicely over the top of the gnome. Now I'm going to get some polyfill and just put at the top, and just to make a little ball for like a beanie or something for the top, for the hat for the gnome. And then if you want, you could add a rubber band around that to create the little ball, the beanie at the top. It's up to you. And so now I'm just going to kind of push it over my gnome and just see how it looks. And I think that looks really good. And then you want to make sure that you glue that in place. And that's how you make a gnome using tights or fabric for the hat. These are several that I've already made. Some are not Christmassy and some are all year. And as you can see, I had little beanies on top of them, and some of them I just had stuffing. And you can see some of the tights where I did tie the little ball at the top, and you can just do that, stuffing polyfill up there and then using ribbons to tie around. So here are a couple of more, and that I just added some of the embellishments to. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If it helped and it helps you, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment. I'd love to see yours, and please subscribe to my channel for more tutorials, and don't forget to like my video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.